Hey, what's up, guys? It's Hayden.
Hey, and I'm Emma. Welcome back to our channel. Thank you for joining us again. If you saw our last video, you'll know we're doing a bit of a mini-series at the moment to get us all through isolation. We really hope you're all doing okay still out there. It's still a bit unknown at the moment, isn't it? It's all still a bit up in the air, but I think Australia is starting to see a bit of light at the end of the tunnel there.
Yeah, we've flattened the curve. So the media keeps saying.
I hate that term so much. I think just because it's been used so much, I'm just like so triggered by it now. But yes, I think we are flattening the curve.
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
There is some light. But anyway, to get you all through isolation, as I said, if you saw our last video, we're doing some top 10 videos at the moment. So our last one was our all-time favorite TV shows that we think are super binge-worthy and definitely give them a watch if you have run out of things to watch during isolation. So if you missed that video, we'll put a link to it in the description below. This video, we're going to do a top 10 Netflix originals. So our favorite Netflix originals that we think are also very binge-worthy. Because, you know, we can have our favorites of all time, but there's still so much content out there that still deserve a watch. So, and we thought with Netflix so accessible to everyone now, and there's so much that they are bringing out all the time that, these are our top 10 picks that we recommend. So I think we'll kick it off with number 10. We'll go 10 to 1. So number 10 came out last year in 2019. It is Afterlife.
Yeah, created by Ricky Gervais, and it follows his character Tony, who is overcoming the loss of his wife. And it just kind of goes through the process someone goes through when they're mourning someone, go through, you know, grief, and there's, dark thoughts, and I guess there's the coping mechanisms that you try to implement. So it kind of goes through all that. It's obviously got that typical Ricky Gervais humor that he likes to inject in there, but it also gets quite serious and emotional and a little bit dark here and there as well.
Yeah. We are big fans of Ricky Gervais, so as soon as this popped up in our Netflix feed, we knew we had to give it a watch. We just absolutely love his dark humor, and he didn't fail with this show again. Like, I think this was actually, while it is a dark comedy, it was really refreshing and nice to see this kind of serious side to Ricky, because while he has shown it in other things that he's done, this show I thought really showed a bit more of a deeper emotional side that he can actually do in his acting, and I really liked that. And it of course it still had its really funny moments, and it is that real dark comedy that he's so good at doing. But yeah, it was really, really good, and I think although it does follow a pretty heartbreaking story, and if you've been through anything like this, I think you'll obviously connect with it too, but it does kind of lighten that kind of horrible situation.
And I think we can all relate to it as well, because we've all gone through loss. We've all had to mourn loss, whether that is a family member, a friend, a pet. So I think it's something we can all connect with, and I think that's probably that connection with Afterlife. Is that we can all relate to it, but then it also kind of, with its humor, makes, I don't want to say makes light of it, but it definitely kind of puts a humorous touch on it.
Yeah, so we definitely recommend it. As I said, although touching on some dark things, you still got that awesome Ricky Gervais comedy.
Yeah, and he definitely carries this show, as most Ricky Gervais properties do. I mean, he's the one, it's his humor, he's the one that kind of carries it. So if you like Ricky Gervais, you'll really like it. If you don't like Ricky Gervais's humor, then you might want to miss this one.
I'd still say give it a go. Yeah, I think it was really good. It was a really touching show, and just lighthearted at the same time, even though it was dealing with some heavy material. But yeah, I give it a watch still. So yeah, Afterlife, give that one a watch. We'll move on now to number 9 on our list, which is The Witcher.
Toss a coin to your Witcher. Banger.
Such a banger.
So The Witcher follows Geralt of Rivia, who is a monster hunter, and he is trying to find his place in a world where sometimes humans act more beastly than the monsters he's hunting.
Yeah.
So this is based off a book, but probably more famously based on a game of the same name. That rhymed.
Well done.
Just consider me Dr. Seuss. Anyway, Yeah, we went in not reading the book or not playing the game, so we went in pretty fresh. Our expectations were not as high as someone who might have, played the games quite a bit and is a big fan of those.
So yeah, we went into this not actually having read the books or played the game, unfortunately, because we're not fortunate enough to own a PS4 yet.
Not cool like that.
Not cool like that. It's on our list to get though.
Top 10 list of things you need to get.
We definitely want to play this game because we've heard some great things, and I guess that was what attracted us to the show then, was because we heard how popular the game was, especially. And I mean, just going off the trailer in itself, it just looked right up our alley. It looks so cool. It's all fantasy. You know, you got hot main character, Henry Cavill. I'm sorry, Don't judge me. So yeah, Henry Cavill being there was also something that drew me in as well. But yeah, then you've got all these awesome creatures, and we love a good fantasy fairy tale. So if you're into that, I think you'd probably enjoy this. So yeah, we went in pretty blind, not knowing much about it, but it was very well done.
Yeah. There's a lot of people saying it was like the next Game of Thrones, and while I wouldn't go that far just yet, it's only one season in. If you are a fan of Game of Thrones and that kind of world, you will find something to like within the world of The Witcher.
Yeah.
Now, the story is a little bit complex. There's a few different storylines and a few different timelines.
Yes.
That kind of interweave, and you can get a little bit lost. I know you were quite lost for a while.
That would be my only criticism is, really pay attention, because I think if you're not familiar with the books or the game, like we weren't, it does get a bit confusing for the fact that I didn't know that there would be overlapping timelines. So just bear that in mind, and you might be able to follow it a bit better.
But they do all connect up towards the end of the season.
It does kind of all make sense in the end.
And overall, really enjoyed The Witcher. I think there was a lot to like, a lot places they can go with it.
Yeah.
Especially, coming from a source material like a book and like a game, because they are quite expansive in their scope. So there's definitely a lot to work from. And can't wait to see the next season. Yeah,
definitely. And the creatures in this were awesome as well. There was one, we won't spoil anything in this again, but there's one episode in particular, and this creature was just so well done. The special effects that they did, the practical effects, that sort of stuff just makes a show for me. If they actually put the work into their creature design, then I'll eat it up. So I really like that too. Great acting, great fight scenes too.
Yeah, great really, like sword choreography and all that.
Really
that
cool
well
choreography.
Done. Henry Cavill was great. I wasn't sure when I heard he was going to be The Witcher. I wasn't sure how he would fit into that role. But he actually played it really well.
He's perfect. He's got the voice. He just has a whole presence.
Yeah, very commanding presence.
Sorry, thirsty comments from Emma again.
What's new? Moving on.
Moving on to number 8 in our list, and that is sex education.
Yeah, so sex education follows Otis, who is a teenager, and it kind of follows, what a teenager goes through, puberty and all that kind of stuff. And obviously going through like what a lot of high schoolers do, which is trying to find their sexuality and where they fit in with that and exploring that. And so he decides to try and teach some of his fellow students about sex education. He starts like this sex therapy clinic at his high school, taking, I guess, a little bit of some of the stuff he learned by observing his mother, who's also a sex therapist. But that's, I guess, a really interesting dynamic, because he's observing his mum doing that, but then at the same time, like, he hasn't been through it himself. So I guess he's going by the theory side of things rather than the physical implementation of it. But his parents are also split up as well, and his mum's always bringing boyfriends home. So it's kind of like he's had this weird kind of observational relationship with sex education and theory, and then now he's trying to implement that at his high school. Yeah,
because as you know, growing up's very awkward as you're trying to figure all that out. And this is it is a comedy, but it does have some drama in it too. Yeah. But it's quite a quirky take on this, on, growing up and going through puberty and learning where you fit into the world and how the human body operates sexually. So it's quite a funny take because he does it on the down low and it becomes kind of this secret little clinic in the school. It's
an interesting dynamic, that, isn't it? It reminded me a lot of Skins.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of British, adolescent, teenage, growing up kind of story.
Coming of age
kind of story, yeah. And I really like that about it because I think the first couple of seasons of Skins were amazing, really good. And I think this kind of had that same, flavor to it.
Yeah, I certainly had that vibe too. So if you ever saw Skins and you're a fan of that, I think you'd probably really like this too. Great cast. Asa Butterfield, I think, is the lead character.
Otis. Yeah.
He's great.
He's kind of got like that awkward teenager vibe to him. He plays that really well.
He's so good, and his mum is played by Gillian Anderson.
Anderson, yeah, of X-Files fame, which is kind of a different role.
It is. It was so weird seeing her go. Yeah, I'm so used to her in that X-Files role, and then seeing her like this, it was totally different. But I love it. She does it really well, and give this one a watch. It's really wholesome, and I think it does touch on some really real and raw things that do happen. And
again, I think something that we can all relate to, whether we're currently going through that ourselves, whether we're we're teenagers and we're going to high school ourselves, or whether you're a little bit older, but you can look back and say, yeah, I was like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like that.
Yeah, really wholesome show. So give it a watch. I think there's 2 seasons out, and I believe there's a 3rd on the way. But yeah, give Sex Education a go. And we'll move on to number 7, Daredevil.
Yeah, so Daredevil follows a blind lawyer called Matthew Murdock, who is practicing out of Hell's Kitchen. He runs a law firm there with his best friend, but he discovers that he can only do so much as a lawyer, and he kind of wants to do more to help the city. So he becomes a vigilante crime fighter called Daredevil, hence the name of the show, I guess. So this is based off a Marvel comic book series. I'm sure everyone knows Daredevil. I'm sure everyone's seen the really bad Ben Affleck version. But this is not that. This is actually a really well adapted TV series. Yeah. Very, very faithful. I love Charlie Cox in this role. I can imagine it would be very tough to play a blind person to actually be able to see but pretend that you can't. Because how you would move and react to things would be different. How you would react by sense and smell rather than and hearing.
Yeah, I think definitely as an actor you would want to, I guess naturally, even just as a person, you would want to look at the person you're talking to. I think it would be really challenging to not have that constant eye contact with people and the things around you. So he did really well to, convincingly play a blind person. I think it does help though he wears glasses though. So
could help, yeah.
But there's some really cool choreography in this show. I was really impressed by that, especially because, Daredevil is about us and, because he is blind, all his senses are heightened and he's got this super ability to kick ass, essentially.
That's his superpower, just kicking ass.
He can throw down some bad dudes. So, and I was really impressed with the fight scenes in this. They were so cool and really well done. Yeah,
it was just a really exciting and engaging TV show. And it's one of the earlier adaptations to TV for Marvel. I think the only one before this was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I didn't really get into, but really enjoyed Daredevil, really enjoyed the character, and really enjoyed where it went in the 2nd season too. So I won't spoil too much, but we do get introduced to a new character, which might be a small hint at what our next pick is. Who's actually one of my favorite superheroes or anti-heroes, however you want to see him. I'm not going to give any hints. No hints. So don't expect anything. Don't expect any hints or anything like that.
Wow,
so should we go into our number 6 then? Is that a good segue into 6?
I think we might have to now. So
but definitely check out Daredevil.
We'll leave Daredevil there. And number 6, if you couldn't guess, is The Punisher.
So The Punisher, if you can't tell, is one of my favorite comic book heroes or anti-heroes, however you want to see and interpret The Punisher. But I'm very unconventional with that. I'm very unconventional with my comic book heroes and stuff. Like, everyone else likes Thor and Iron Man, Spider-Man. I'm like, nah, give me the Punisher, give me Blade. Like, those are my favorites. I guess the darker characters within that universe.
Got a bit more grit to them.
Got a bit more grit. Yeah, I like grit. Grit. So the Punisher follows Frank Castle, whose family is murdered, and he wants to seek revenge, becoming the Punisher. So seeking out punishment for the people that wronged him and his family, and then also pretty much anyone who wants to stand in his way as well. He just takes down anyone that gets in his way.
Yeah. I do really love this character too, and probably not to the same level as you, but definitely just through your love of it, I've definitely been more, opened up to the Punisher story and him as a character, and he's so cool. Like, I do actually really love this storyline and watching him and John Bernthal as the Punisher.
The best choice I think they could have made. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he is like perfect for this role, and he absolutely nails it. He just embodies this character in a way I don't think anyone else could.
He's got a physicality about him.
Yeah.
Like, when he's like about to go into a fight, he's just like, he's just like psychs himself up. Like, it just gets you pumped.
Oh, and again, the choreography in this show, as you know,
choreography is a big thing with the last two shows.
That is one thing, that both Daredevil and Punisher nailed, was the fight sequences. And I think Punisher just steps it up again. Some of these fights were so intense and brutal. And some of them, there was one in particular, I just thought, I felt sorry for the cameraman having to follow the action. It was just so full on, but just really well organized and just badass. Like, it was so cool, some of these fight scenes. And if you love action and you love that real, quite violent, actually, those really violent kind of fight sequences, I think you'll get some really good satisfaction out of the Punisher.
Oh yeah, the violence doesn't hold any punches, no pun intended. It's quite brutal, quite violent, gets a bit bloody here and there.
Yeah.
I love this. And I think the thing I love about the Punisher is he's just a man. He's just a dude. Like, he's got no superpowers or anything like that.
No, he's not radioactive.
He's had some military training, that's about it.
Yeah. Very well military training.
Very well military training.
Yeah, he's an ex-vet or something.
Yeah. But yeah, he's just a guy. And I think that's what I love about him.
Driven by emotion. The loss of his family, which,
sadness, anger.
I think because with all these superheroes, they're all great. And when we love them for one reason or another, I think the reason we love the Punisher so much is because he is just a normal, in a way, a normal human guy. Like, he hasn't been zapped by anyone or
bitten by a radioactive spider.
Yeah, like he's just driven by the love of his family and passion and revenge. And he's just got this body of skills behind him.
A very particular set of skills.
Very, very particular set of skills.
Liam Neeson would be proud.
So definitely recommend The Punisher, especially if you're into, Marvel, but action and good storylines too, though.
Yeah.
Like, really thrilling, and you are on the edge of your seat a lot too. There's always something going on, and I think you do need to. You could probably watch this without seeing Daredevil, but I think you probably would get a little bit more out of seeing Daredevil, because that was released first, and then they released The Punisher.
Maybe see Daredevil. And like, all these Marvel Netflix shows do intertwine a little bit. So yeah, you probably want to kind of watch them all. Yeah. And just get the most out of them. Because they also had like the Defenders and
Luke Cage,
Jessica Jones. So all of them kind of tie in a little bit to each other. So, or they tend to towards the later seasons. Yeah,
but you could definitely still watch them on their own and still get a lot of enjoyment out of it. So yeah. We'll move on to number 5 now, and that is Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, so Orange is the New Black follows Piper Chapman, who has been arrested for transporting drug money for her ex and has to spend a year and a half behind bars. So it's about how she adapts to prison life, and I guess just looks at how anyone would adapt to prison life.
Yeah. And this is actually based off a true story of Piper Kerman, I believe. She wrote a memoir about her time in prison, and Netflix then picked it up and turned it into what we have. So I think it kind of stretches the truth.
Yeah, I think like any
lot.
show, it takes liberties and it stretches the truth here and there just for entertainment value.
Yeah.
Not to say that the real life story wouldn't be entertaining and have its moments, but I think with TV, you've obviously got to find out where storylines can go and expand on
and
things
introduce other
introduce
characters, obviously.
yeah.
So it's obviously got some truth behind it, but it spanned over. We had quite a few seasons of Orange Is the New Black. It is wrapped up now. It finished. I can't remember which year. It was a few years ago now. But we loved it from the get go. The moment it was released, we were right on board and followed it to the end. And it was just such an eclectic bunch of women that we got to see.
A lot of characters and personalities.
Yeah, really, really fun characters. I mean, bearing in mind that they are all criminals, but
as fun as criminals can be, I guess.
yeah. But you do kind of overlook the fact that they are criminals. But I think that's the thing about this show is it does show the backgrounds of these women and how
a lot
they
of flashbacks.
a lot of flashbacks, and then you find out the journeys of how these women have come to turn up in prison. And I guess you can kind of, it does open your eyes to, I guess, some very real world scenarios that would be like this.
Everyone's got a story. Everyone, I guess, was put on a path to get where they eventually would end up.
Yeah.
Not to, I guess, make any excuses for what they did, but
you
that's
can kind of
just life.
sympathise and empathise.
Yeah,
with
whether
them.
it's a broken home or whether you grew up in the streets, whether you just hang around the wrong kinds of people in school. All
just
those
simply
things
in the wrong place at the wrong time.
just kind of set you on this path that you don't really want or expect to go, but you just end up on it anyway. And I think it touches a lot on that.
Yeah, and this is a comedy.
I think it's more a comedy than a comedy drama.
It's a comedy drama. It does obviously have drama in it because it is still serious content, but they've got in it being, criminals and prison life and all that. But it's a very lighthearted take on it, and we do have quite a lot of funny moments and funny characters there, as I said. So Taylor Schilling plays our lead, Piper Coleman. I think she's great in this role. She really portrayed Piper so well. And Laura Prepon is also in. You'll probably recognise her from that 70s show. Yeah.
It was a bit of a weird kind of role change for her.
Yeah, but she was really good. Again, takes on kind of more of a serious... She's got more of a serious character, I think. Yeah. And she does that really well. So definitely give Orange Is the New Black a watch. And I think we'll leave it there and we'll move on to number 4 in our list, and that is 13 Reasons Why.
Yeah, so 13 Reasons Why follows Clay Jensen, who is a teenager, and he's trying to uncover the story of why his high school crush decided to end her life. And when she did take her life, she left behind 13 tapes implicating 13 people as, the reason why she decided to end her life. So, look, this is a very, very heavy emotional story and deals a lot of heavy and emotional themes, such as suicide, sexual assault, bullying, all that kind of stuff. So it does get it can be quite, I guess, a confronting watch at times. Yeah,
it does deal with some pretty dark themes. It is actually based off a book by Jay Asher, and Netflix has adapted it to television from that. And I think the thing that Netflix did well with this was they didn't hold back on the really confronting stuff, because, and I mean, it has been known to be quite controversial because of how heavy the content gets. But I think that's what makes it so good, is because, you've got this fantastic writing and this fantastic lot of actors who just show such range in their emotions and just sell these characters that you just connect with them and you go along this journey with them. And I really, even though the subject matter is quite controversial, I think it's good that it's making people talk about these things.
I think that's the key to this show, is it does make people, I guess, want to talk about these issues. It brings up these issues and it just makes it clear that, look, you can talk to people and it brings up the issues so we can, I guess, talk about them a little bit more openly. I think what we need to do more of just as people, no matter what we're dealing with, is just, turn to a friend, turn to family, turn to a counselor, get that help when you need it.
Absolutely.
And I think this show does a good job bring those issues to light.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing to keep in mind with this show is, though, if you do suffer from depression or anxiety, this could be a bit triggering for you. So bear that in mind before giving it a watch if it's going to be for you. But look, if you are a parent with a kid, like a teenage kid especially, I think it would be... there's a lot of parents I know who have been reluctant to let their kids watch this. But I think it's probably a show that is important to see supervised, supervise them, because it does touch on some very real and true things that high schoolers go through. And so I definitely think give it a go if you can. Obviously, trigger warning on it. But it is an outstanding show. The acting is phenomenal. It is a great storyline. Every episode is as good as the next. And it's not a feel-good show, but if you love really good writing, really emotionally driven storylines, and you love just really good acting, I think you would love this. It's got some very important things that need to be addressed and discussed, highlight some very real world things going on. So check out 13 Reasons Why. Let us know what you think if you have already seen it, because it has been out for quite a while. It is very popular. And we'll move on to number 3 in our list, and that is Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah, so Haunting of Hill House follows the Crane family as they are being haunted by their past, and in particular an event that happened at their old family home that has just stayed with them and is now haunting them, and they need to now confront that. So confront not only the home but the event that happened and trying to overcome that.
Yeah. And this is another show that was adapted from a book by Shirley Jackson, and I absolutely loved this show so much. It was so beautiful. I actually just recently did a rewatch of it. We binged it when it came out. I think it was in 2018. We binged it in like 2 days, I think. We were just glued to the TV. And I wanted to watch it again because there is actually a second season coming out, thank God. There is a second season coming out this year, so I wanted to have a bit of a refresh. And even watching it the second time around, I got so much out of it. It's so binge-worthy. It is so good. It is so well done. Again, I think it's a credit to the writing and the acting and the directing. I think, again, we won't spoil too much, but for me, just what was really done well in this show is it does follow, I guess, 2 storylines with the same family. You follow their storyline with the kids as they're growing up in this house, and then you are following the kids as they are adults.
So that event, when they were kids, that's leading up to the actual event that drove them from the home. So that's kind of telling that story. And then, modern day as adults, it's now like where they are in the present day and how they're dealing with that. Yeah,
and I think they've done that so well with the flashbacks, and they tie in so well into the present. And there's one episode in particular that really is a standout for me. And when I talk about fantastic directing, but fantastic camera operation as well, there is one episode where majority of the episode is done in one take. And it blew my mind. And I think in the first watch, it took me, a few minutes to actually click that the camera hadn't actually cut yet. And then once I noticed, I was like, this is still one shot. This is still going. I was like, oh my God, it's still going. It was like nearly the entire episode that they did in one take. And I think that is so cool.
That was very impressive.
It was so impressive. I mean, the amount of rehearsals that they would have had to have done to, not only for the actors, I mean, obviously, like, actors can do stage productions. That's essentially all one take, isn't it? Like, you don't get any breaks with that. But to then have, directors and camera operators and lighting and sound crew in there, all working around each other, not to get in each other's way. So much preparation would have had to go into that.
Yeah, because the camera wasn't just, I guess, set to one side. Like, it was moving around.
It was moving
you could
with
see,
the actors.
like, the whole room. So the crew behind the camera would have needed to move with the camera and move behind it, and the actors that weren't required would have needed to make sure they moved off so the camera didn't pick up anything it shouldn't have. It's really, really impressive that shot that they did, and a lot goes into that. where your camera's going to be moving to. So that all of that would have had to been planned out prior.
Yeah.
They would have had to have done a handful of walkthroughs, I'd imagine, beforehand. Just making sure they could move here and, you know, set up the camera and make sure they knew exactly how they were going to frame it up after every move, making sure that no like lighting, and like that's another thing, like getting around lighting. So by the looks of it and how I'd imagine is they would have installed lighting above, or practical lighting, as we say. So practical lighting being lighting that's actually part of the location.
Well, actually, sorry, just quickly, as you said, I actually just remembered, I think I did read that they had to build a specific set just for this episode so that they could work around these elements.
So all the lighting would have been rigged into the roof.
Yeah.
So all of that, just so much preparation and planning to do that. And also just to be able to do that and not, I guess, have a misstep and stop up. Because if you literally, you know, not frame up a shot right, or one of the actors stuffs up, you're starting from the beginning.
Yeah.
unless you've got a way to cut and like doing like a invisible cut halfway through, which is usually done by going past walls or behind a person or something like that. But even then, I didn't see any of that. Like it looked like one continuous flowing take. Yeah, very impressive.
So anyway, that's just one episode. But every episode is riveting. It's impressive. It's just beautifully well made. The cinematography is so stunning. I mean, again, it helps having a beautiful set to deal with. You've got this stunning mansion as the backdrop.
Good location and set can definitely elevate a production.
Yeah, it really helped to just sort of, the atmosphere in this, just all of it just came together so beautifully to create that really eerie, you know, haunted house. So yes, it's a horror, but it was a beautiful horror. It was just so nice to look at, like every shot. And I love the storyline. I love the characters. I was really impressed with the overall filmmaking, especially in that later episode as we were just talking about. I could watch that episode over and over again because it's just so well done. But the whole show is, and I think the other great thing that they did with this is the subtly placed ghosts in the background. Now look, if you're not into ghosts or horror in general, you may not like this, but I still recommend you check it out anyway, because it is still such a beautiful storyline and so well made. But the thing that I really loved was the subtle placements of ghosts and creepy things in the background, because I mean, we picked up on them in the first watch through, but then being aware of that's what they're doing in this show, on my second watch through, I noticed even more that I hadn't picked up in the first watch. And once you see something, it's like you can't unsee it. It's like, oh my God, there's a figure in the background, or they're just like a simple hand on a wall, just little things like that. And they're not even in focus, and it's like could be completely in the background. And, you know, you've got your characters doing their thing in the foreground, and, you know, even though this little thing's in the background, it still doesn't take away by what's happening in the main story. But it's just that little extra Easter egg that they've added, and it just makes it that more thrilling. And so then your senses are heightened, and you're always on edge. You know, what's happening in the background? Is there something there? Am I seeing things? Because, you know, sometimes it is just a statue, but you don't know, and it keeps you guessing. And I absolutely love that about this. If you love horror, I think you'll really enjoy these moments and just that extra creep factor it gives you.
It's great when a show can do that when you can watch it a second time and it gives you something new. I think that's really smart, just filmmaking there, and great horror filmmaking, because great horror is when you're looking into the corners of the room, you're looking in the shadows, and you're like, is something there? I'm not sure. And then your eyes are adjusting, and you're like, oh, yeah, there is. And it just makes you, I guess, uneasy, like, because you're looking around the room and you're trying to spot stuff, and it just makes you uneasy. And that's just great horror filmmaking. And that was, a good thing about the second rewatch. Yeah,
definitely. And look, it does occasionally have some jump scares. Not a lot, but when they do them, it's not like your cheesy jump scare.
No, they're earned.
They're well placed, and it just, again, keeps you on edge. If you like those sort of shows that give you these feelings.
There was one in particular that almost made you jump off the couch, wasn't there?
No spoilers, but there is one jump scare you do not see coming, and oh my God, I think everyone I've spoken to as well who've seen this, like, oh my God, that scene scarred me. It's just so abrupt, but it's so good. And please give Haunting of Hill House a watch. It is so good, and I cannot wait for this second season. Keep an eye out for it. All right, we'll move on to number 2 in our list. We're getting to our top 2.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorites. I was so happy when I found out they were doing a series of this. It is The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. It is a prequel to one of my all-time favorite movies, The Dark Crystal. Ah, I love it so much.
Yeah, so The Dark Crystal, as you said, is a prequel. So it follows the Gelfling and the Skeksis. And now at this particular time, the Skeksis are rulers of this land. And the Gelfling kind of worship them to an extent. Until they discover, I guess, the dark secret behind the Skeksis' power, which, when they confront them about it, starts this conflict and this war that is, like a precursor and a prequel to the 1982 movie. So what this show does well is exactly what the movie did well, and that is its practical effects.
Yes.
Oh my God, these practical effects are up there with some of the best I've ever seen. Just the puppetry and the craftsmanship on display is second to none. And in this day and age too, when CGI is taking over, I'm so glad to see a show like this still do effects like this and do them well.
It's refreshing.
I loved it. Yeah.
It's refreshing,
It's
isn't
very
it?
refreshing.
And I think the main thing with this that they did well, that Netflix did well, was that they let the original team make this show. It is the original Jim Henson Company who did the Dark Crystal movie. They've come on board to do the show. And I'm now torn, but I don't know which I like better because I absolutely adore the movie and I love the show on the same level. Yeah. They did it so well. And okay, so when I first saw the trailer, I was a little bit concerned because it did show some CGI.
I think there is some CGI enhancements.
Yes. And look, you're creating a very high fantasy world. Obviously, you would have to have some kind of, well, nowadays, as you said, they rely a lot on CGI.
But that's it though. It's enhancements. It's not complete CGI characters or environments. Like they're actual physical environments and characters. And all they've done is use the technology we now have at our disposal is just to enhance that. Because as much as we love the movie, there are elements of it that are a tad dated. Yeah. So some like the expressions on the puppets and stuff like that, which is stuff that they were able to fix with the new one. And it just kind of takes the production values from that movie and brings them into a modern setting. Yeah, but I think that's what Jim Henson and his company are known for, is just doing that really authentic characters and landscape with practical effects, because obviously in those times they didn't have CGI and the effects that we have today. And, you know, Netflix and their team could very easily have relied on CGI, and I'm so glad that they didn't. I think they were about to. Like, I think they did some CGI tests and were trying to do something a little bit more along those lines. And then I don't think they got too far in before they're like, no, if we're going to do this faithfully, we've got to do all practical effects, or most predominantly practical effects. And yeah, so glad they did, because it wouldn't have been the same. Oh, no. And look, I think really the only times that they use CGI is in the landscapes, because obviously they had envisioned probably a bit more for the landscapes, even in the movie, and just the technology at the time sort of created that barrier for them. But now with CGI, they can create these worlds that they probably originally envisioned. Yeah. And I guess that's what I mean when I was talking about the trailer, and that, you know, I saw a landscape shot and it was obviously a bit CGI, and I was like, oh, please don't let them have gone down this road and the whole show is going to be that. Thankfully, watching the show, they've stuck to the original puppetry, and I don't actually think they really use CGI on the puppets. I don't think so. If they did, it was super minimal. It was very subtle. I really think it was only for landscapes and some of the magical elements that happen. But I just thank you. Thank you, Jim Henson's company and Netflix, for just doing it right. Because everything was done well. The craftsmanship, the filmmaking, the storytelling, like it told like a really engaging, high fantasy story that you just got sucked into. You got sucked into this world and the characters. And I think it helped having like real life puppets
Yep.
and all that rather than following CGI characters.
Or even people.
Or even people, yeah.
Don't go into this thing thinking you're going to see a human, because you're not. It's all puppets. But that's what's great about it. It's so different to everything you see on TV now. You don't really see
There's
puppetry
nothing like this
anymore.
at all anymore. Not since like maybe like the Muppets.
I mean, you see them with kids shows.
Sesame Street maybe is like the only other example of...
Yeah, like the kids are still watching this stuff, but there's nothing for... And look, I think kids could watch this, but honestly...
I think maybe your slightly older kids. I mean, there are some darker elements to the Dark Crystal universe.
Yeah.
Which some kids might be younger kids might be a little bit scared of.
And look, the Skeksis are pretty good. Even I find them quite scary.
Slightly creepy. But yeah. And some of the voice acting was really well done as well. So you had Simon Pegg as Chamberlain, who Chamberlain was actually one of the main iconic characters from the movie. So doing him would have been really tough, but he did it justice. Like, you couldn't fault it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we're introduced to new characters in this show, but there's also a lot of original characters, and they had to obviously get some new actors to portray those original characters. So mimicking the same voice, especially for the he had such
a very iconic voice.
Yeah, such a unique voice, and Simon Pegg nailed it. Like, he sounds exactly like the original. It's so good. But we had some other great voice actors in there. We had
Mark Hamill was in there.
Yeah,
he's a great voice actor. So he was in there. Taron Egerton plays our protagonist, Rianne. And we also had
Natalie Emmanuel from Game of Thrones, some of you might remember. And she played, I think, my favourite character in the whole show, Deet. Deet is so gorgeous. I love her so much. But that's just a few of the voice actors. But there's also Jason Isaacs in there as well. Yeah. But the list goes on. There are so many fantastic voice actors in here. But let's not also forget the puppeteers. There is such a
great
team.
Puppetry.
There's such a team behind these characters.
Some of these puppets can take like a few people to
puppeteer it.
To maneuver, yeah. And the movement is just so fluid and realistic. Like, very well done.
So good. And they do actually have a making of this series.
Definitely watch that.
Oh, it's
you get so much of an appreciation for the work that goes into it.
So much work went into it, and you can't go past these effects. They're outstanding, and Jim Henson Company is known for this, and I'm so glad that they came back to do this show. They were the only choice. Yeah. I think they would have really screwed this show up if they didn't get the original back. So thank you, Netflix, for doing this show. I think there's a season 2 coming.
I hope so. I think there is. There should be, because it was a pretty big hit, actually. I mean, I think there was nothing but praise for this.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. Yeah, definitely check this one out.
Yeah, one of my favorites. And I think we'll now move on to our number 1 Netflix pick.
And if you've seen our last video, I think you know what it is.
I'm also, again, hinting it.
True.
It is Stranger Things.
So look, if you've seen our last video, you know our thoughts on Stranger Things. This is a show set in the 80s that follows a group of kids who kind of get wound up in this whole kind of lab experiment gone wrong. So they open up this portal to this place called the Upside Down, and this creature comes through and abducts one of their friends. And then themselves, the town police chief, and also the kid's mother have to then kind of go on this adventure to find their friend Will and to bring him home.
Yeah. So again, if you saw our last video, it made our number 3 position of favorite shows of all time. It's our number 1 Netflix pick. Just quality show. It is so well made. Again, a great cast of actors who just from the kids to the adult cast.
Yeah, Finn Wolfhard, Millie Bobby Brown. All the kids are really lovable and remind me of those kids from like the 80s and like movies like E.T., you know, they're riding around on their bicycles and stuff. All that was great. Winona Ryder's fantastic, as well as David Harbour. Just a great cast. And yeah, as I said in our last kind of review of it, just really nostalgic. Takes you back to the 80s, takes me back to my childhood, which is, I think, the thing I loved about it the most was that nostalgia, the feeling of nostalgia. You just don't get that with a lot of shows, and I got that with this one.
Yeah, and I think again, the creature effects are so well done in this as well. And it's just
The Demigorgon. Yeah.
Demigorgon. This is
Yeah,
so
very
cool.
A little creature.
Yeah. But it's just a really great original story.
Made by the Duffer Brothers.
Yes, the Duffer Brothers
to
did
them.
this. And I think we also have to mention how good the intro song is as well.
Oh, I love that intro song.
I know a lot of people, like we do it too, a lot of people do tend to skip
Even
the
on our
intros.
favourite shows, we'll skip the intro. Like, I'm pretty sure we skip, like, Game of Thrones intro.
Well, that just goes
Yeah, we skipped,
too
like,
long.
the Outlander intro. But the one intro we never skip is Stranger Things.
It's just such a good
Just
song.
such a great synthwave track that I just love listening to it.
Yeah.
We listen to it in our spare time.
Yeah. It's just on our playlist now.
Yeah, love the opening theme song.
Really cool theme song.
Yeah. I think it just sets the tone for the show in general, which is, I guess, what you want a good theme song to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, Stranger Things is very popular. I think most people probably would have seen it by now, but if you haven't, get on it. It's so good.
We just wrapped up season 3 not that long ago, so season 4 has been announced. I think it has been pushed back because of everything that's going on, but it is in the works. It's on the way. I can't wait.
I can't wait.
Especially with how season 3 left off. The end of season 3 was pretty heavy, so I'm really keen to, I guess, see how all our characters deal with all of that in season 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's our 10.
I think so. That is our top 10 Netflix originals that we recommend, that we think you'll really enjoy. Look, yes, you've probably seen some of these already. There are a lot of popular shows in that list, but if you have seen them, give them another rewatch. All of them deserve a rewatch. They are all fantastic, all binge-worthy. Hopefully you found something in there new that you can go and watch now, though. And look, stick around for our next video, because we did our top 10 favorites of all time, but there were quite a few shows that we couldn't obviously put in that list, but they're still worthy of your time. So we're going to bring you our honorable mentions next. So keep an eye out for that.
Yeah. To be notified when that video drops, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell for the notifications. Slam that like button if you like what we do. Most importantly, though, wash those hands, kids.
You should wash your hands, you dirty pig.
Get those hands washed. Stay safe. Hopefully we're giving you something to get you through isolation. And yeah, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye.